What's going on, everybody? We're back with another episode of Coordinated Chaos. In this episode, we are going to be recapping what happened in Super Wildcard Weekend. Then we're going to get into a little bit of off-season player free agency, trade speculation between two different players. Those two players being Derek Carr and Tom Brady. And then we're going to go right into some of the gambling preview of the divisional round of the playoffs. It's going to be very exciting this next week. I can't wait for the Eagles to play. I'm sure everybody else's fan base is ready to go as well. So let's jump right into this bad boy, and we will start with the first game that we saw on Saturday at 4:30, which was the 49ers and Seahawks. This game right out the gate was a close game. Obviously, division rivals, so those two teams do not like each other. They have played each other twice already, so this was the third time this year that they've matched up. 49ers swept the series. The 49ers got the job done, but in the first half, it was a lot more competitive than the end result ended up showing. So really, the Seahawks came out and they played well. They were kind of carving up the 49ers secondary a little bit there. DK Metcalf was playing very well in this one. Geno Smith was playing pretty good. They actually went into halftime with a lead at 17-16, and then it looked like they were going to stay competitive. Going straight into the third quarter a little bit there. But really, what turned the tide was a strip sack fumble from Geno Smith, and that pretty much turned the whole football game. As soon as that happened, momentum shifted, and the 49ers started just stomping on the gas pedal, and they were getting anything and everything they wanted on offense at that point. They were running the ball very well and efficiently, and then Brock Purdy was just putting the ball on the money whenever Kyle Shanahan asked him to do it, essentially. And so 49ers end up rolling in this one. I think it was 41 to like 17 or something like that at the end of the day. So, or 41 to like 21 or something like that. I can't remember exactly what the end result was there. But 49ers ended up kind of blowing them out by the end of the fourth quarter there at the end of the game. So 49ers, man, they look really, really good. There's really not a whole lot you can say. Brock Purdy, I will say, looked a little bit shaky coming out of the game, but it's his first ever playoff game. He is a rookie, so you only expect that, honestly. So, like I said, though, the 49ers look good. They're probably, in my opinion, as an Eagles fan, the scariest team left in the playoffs. So hopefully we only have to potentially play them in the NFC Championship game. So yeah, that's the first game we watched, and then the second game, man, it looked like an absolute just terrible game to start. Basically, the Chargers came out and just brought it to the Jaguars in Jacksonville. The crowd was way out of it. Trevor Lawrence ended up throwing 4 picks in the first half, which is almost impossible to do. This dude was just throwing balls straight into the hands of, especially Asante Samuel Jr. He had 3 of the 4 picks in the first half there. They ended up getting a score late in that first half. The Jaguars, I should say, because they went out 27-0 at one point in the first half. Ended up getting a score at the end of the first half there. And then once the second half started, the Jaguars got a very important first 3 and out from the Chargers, and they were able to put together sustained drives and at least put points on the board on every single drive, whether it be a touchdown or a field goal. And they marched their way right back into the game and ended up clinching it. There was a very pivotal 4th and 1 call where Doug Peterson did not like the look. He looked like Trevor Lawrence was about to change the play call, in quotations, at the line. And so he called a timeout to make everybody think that he was just going to go ahead and do the QB sneak. Then they big-brained it and actually handed the ball off to Travis Etienne around the edge, and that ended up getting them like a 15-yard, 20-yard gain out of it, which essentially set them up for a game-winning field goal, and Riley Patterson killed it. So, man, what an incredible comeback. Supposedly the 3rd largest playoff comeback in the history of the NFL. So, it's the magic of Doug Peterson. That dude just gets it done at every turn. He did it, when he was with the Eagles as the head coach. He, made some magical play calls during that run as well. And, you just got to give it up to a good head coach at that point, because he was able to rein in his young QB who was just absolutely struggling in the first half, and got him going again in the second half, and just said, basically, forget it. You got to be kind of like a cornerback. You just got to have short memory. None of that stuff even matters, because we are going to do, what we ended up doing in that second half, and that was just whatever the offense asked them to do. So Very impressive comeback from the Jags. They're going to be running into a buzzsaw next round, so we will see. It's going to be an interesting storyline there. Doug Peterson versus Andy Reid. Obviously, Doug Peterson was a protege of Andy Reid, so cool little storyline there. But let's go to the next game. First game of Sunday, Dolphins versus Bills. This game, I was just thinking, obviously. So this weekend, it was rough when it came to gambling predictions for me. I went 2-4, so not so hot. So the first two got those two wrong. This one got this one wrong as well. I thought the Bills would cover here. They did not end up doing that because the Dolphins and Skylar Thompson put up an absolute great fight. The game was close the entire time. The Bills eventually get the job done. I was not expecting that much of a fight out of the Dolphins. You got to give it up to Mike McDaniel. He did everything in his power to get them, in this game and competitive in this game with a third-string quarterback. So you'd like to think that if they did have Tua, they would have had a very, very good chance of winning this game. So that's very unfortunate for Dolphins fans. You hate to see that for them, unfortunately. But for the Bills, this magical run is just going to continue to go right now. And we will see what happens in this next week. This was going to, the next week they're going to be playing the Bengals in the Divisional. So it's going to be a rematch of what would have happened, obviously, instead of what happened with the Damar Hamlin incident. So that, is basically going to reset everybody's opinion here. So we'll see what happens in that game. This can be very fun. Obviously, we're going to preview that in a little bit here. Let's go to the next game, though. We got Bengals versus Ravens. This game, surprisingly, these last few games were all, well, I should say into the last one. The Sunday games were pretty cool. So that last game, Bengals versus Ravens, I didn't think there was any shot that the Ravens were going to win the game, and they really had the Bengals on the ropes. Really just came down to the Tyler Huntley play where he goes to reach over the goal line, and he was just way too far out. He tried to reach it from like the 2. Ball gets smacked out of his hands. Sam Hubbard grabs the ball, scoop and score, 98-yard touchdown. I think that was one of the longest, scoop and scores in the history of NFL / playoffs or whatever it may be. Just an incredible turn of events there. I really thought the Ravens were going to beat the Bengals, and as an Eagles fan who might end up having to be in the Super Bowl, might end up having to face a Cincinnati Bengals team that is super explosive on offense, I was kind of hoping the Ravens would go ahead and get that done. Didn't happen, so. But the Bengals, man, they just find ways to win. They obviously have some kinks in their armor. They lost some players in this game. They had some injuries and stuff. So going forward, it's not great that the Bengals are dealing with some more injuries at this point in time. But they got a tough road ahead, obviously, with the Bills up next. So next game, this was an absolute just bloodbath. Cowboys, Buccaneers, Monday night. That was last night. Man, an absolute disaster. Tom Brady and that offense looked inept. Todd Bowles is just not built to be a head coach. He is a great defensive coordinator. I will give him credit for that. But man, as a head coach, he just can't get it done. I don't know I really don't know what the difference is. I know there is, multiple differences, and there's just all kinds of variables when it comes to being a head coach, all kinds of different decision making. But it's crazy that somebody can be so good at one thing in particular on the football field when it comes to coaching and just be so bad at it in other aspects. It's pretty wild. So Cowboys just smacked them around. Dak Prescott threw for 4 touchdowns, ran for 1. Brett Maher, the funniest thing that's probably happened all NFL season, he missed 4 consecutive extra point field goals. And that was hilarious. I was dying laughing watching that. If in any other game that should have probably came back to bite the Cowboys in the rear, but the Bucs were just not going to be competitive in that game. They refused to be a good football team at the end of the day. So obviously the Cowboys get a huge road win, first one in a long time for them in the playoffs, and so they're looking forward to playing this divisional round, getting a rematch with the 49ers from last year. That tough loss for them. So it's going to be really, really fun this next round. And let's get into, that's pretty much it for the Super Wildcard weekend. Let's go ahead and get into these, off-season player, speculation, stuff like that. Let's start with Derek Carr right now. There's obviously the reports coming out that if they do not trade him, the Raiders, I should say, do not trade him by, I think it was February 14th or 15th, they are going to outright release him, then there's going to be an absolute, a sweepstakes on Derek Carr because he is a good quarterback. I mean, probably at least top 15, I would say. He's very, very competent. He's got a good arm. He's pretty smart for the most part. I don't think he makes that many dumb decisions on the football field. I think he can really help a team that just is a quarterback away. That's easier said than done. A lot of teams have tried this in the past, just trying to insert a veteran into a situation where they think they're just a QB away, and sometimes it doesn't work out. Sometimes it does. Ask Matt Stafford how that worked out. So I'm just going to give you some potential suitors, some that people are obviously going to think of right off the top of their head, like the Washington Commanders. Obviously, that's a great spot for him. You have Terry McLaurin, you have Curtis Samuel, you have Jahan Dotson, you have the running back duo there, Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson, Logan Thomas at tight end. So they have weapons. Their defense is pretty good, and I think it's only going to get better with more health and then more help in the future here in free agency and the draft this season. So Commanders, solid spot for me as an Eagles fan. I'd hate to see it. Don't want it because I think he can really stabilize that whole organization as the leader there, and I just do not need that. I need their QB situation to continue to be rocky so the Eagles can just kind of not really think about them as much as they'd like to. So that's where I'm at on that. But the next team you think about, and this is probably my favorite spot for him at this point, would be the Jets. The Jets are obviously one quarterback away, it looks like, with their weaponry. You got Garrett Wilson, a very good rookie from this past season. You have Corey Davis, a solid veteran. You have Elijah Moore, a solid second-year player going into his third year now. They have good weapons. Obviously, the running back room is very solid as well. And then you have a very good Jets defense. That Jets defense is playoff ready, if you ask me, and they're only going to get better. Sauce Gardner did his thing. Quentin Williams did his thing this year. So they proved to be a very formidable defense. They just need the offense to kind of help balance out that attack. So that's probably my favorite spot. The next one that people don't think of as much, but I think should be discussed, is the Saints. The Saints are a spot where they have some decent weapons on offense as well. You have Chris Olave, a great rookie from this past offseason. You have Rashid Shaheed. He is a nice little weapon, very fast. Jarvis Landry, as long as he's healthy, he kind of was in and out of the lineup all this season. Obviously, Alvin Kamara, I don't know what's going to happen there. There may be some kind of off-season trade or whatever, because I don't know if he seems super happy about being there this season. But if they get a QB, he might just be willing to just chill out and stay there and sign another contract or whatever it may be. So that's a spot, obviously, kind of like I said, they're in QB purgatory. They don't want Andy Dalton going forward. I don't think they want Jameis Winston to be the guy going forward. They have Taysom Hill mixing in and out of there just as like a gadget guy, so he's not like a long-term, starter for them. So that's a spot for sure. And then some of these are, I guess the Falcons as well. You just want to see, what they think about Desmond Ridder. I don't think he didn't do too hot at the end of the season. I think that he could be maybe a potential solid backup going forward, but I don't see him being a long-term starter in the NFL, especially for the Falcons. So they're probably back in on either a veteran or drafting a QB this offseason. So they could potentially be in on this Derek Carr thing. So that would be interesting. Dark horse ones. My first one I'm thinking about is the Buccaneers. And that is relevant due to the fact that, Tom Brady, there is speculation that he maybe would be interested in going to the Raiders. And so I put it up on social media today and I don't really know any of the background salary cap implications, like draft capital implications of both of these teams. I just threw it out there just because. But what if there was a one-for-one type kind of trade of Tom Brady, Derek Carr? Obviously, Carr goes to the Buccaneers. Tom Brady goes to the Raiders, where he's back with his guy Josh McDaniels. He's got Devontae Adams as a nice weapon. Hunter Renfrow, which I said was a very close. He's kind of like a clone of like a Julian Edelman. He's got Darren Waller there who could be his Gronk. So it's a very solid offense around there. It's just really what held the Raiders back this year was how bad the defense was. So they would have to do some big time overhaul in the defensive side of the ball there to be competitive again and maybe convince Tom Brady to come there at some point. So there's that. Obviously, Derek Carr, if he does go to Tampa Bay, there's still weapons there. They have, Mike Evans. They have Chris Godwin. The running backs there are okay. They're not great. The defense is pretty good, but I think they're in a little bit of cap trouble right now. So I don't know who is going to be able to stay around, who's going to get cut because of caps, situations, stuff like that. So the defense could suffer because of money and whatnot. Offense could technically suffer as well due to money. So I don't know what their exact situation is there, but that would be a very interesting trade if they could make something like that happen. The last thing for Derek Carr and like a dark horse candidate for him to go to would be the Pats. I don't know. It's kind of like a situation where I don't know if they're super committed to Mac Jones right now. He has been up and down both of his seasons in the NFL. He was better his rookie season than he was this past year, so it is what it is. But I think they would be potentially in on that. Bill Belichick wants a guy that he can kind of trust as the quarterback, and I think Derek Carr is that type of quarterback. So, that's pretty much it. Like I said, Tom Brady potentially going to the Raiders. I've heard rumors of him going potentially back to the Pats, which I think would be kind of cool. But once again, like I said, it's just if how they feel about the whole Mac Jones thing. And then I don't really know of any other people that or any other teams rumored for Tom Brady. I know the 49ers are kind of in there, but man, Brock Purdy's playing so good. And maybe like if there's like a deal where like they say, all right, Brock, you're the guy of the future. You sit this one more year after this playoff run, even if you win or lose or whatever. I mean, if you win the Super Bowl, no, it's out. Like they're not trading for a Tom Brady or anything like that. And obviously, the whole situation with Trey Lance, I don't know what they do there. Jimmy G, he's definitely out after this season. But I think if, Brock Purdy takes them to, obviously they're already in the divisional round. If they lose here, if they lose in the NFC Championship game, I think there's a chance where the 49ers say, all right, we're going to bring in Tom Brady for 1 or 2 years. You're going to sit behind him. You're going to learn from the GOAT. And we're going to see if we can squeeze the last bit of juice out of this orange, talking about Tom Brady, that we can. See if we can get a couple Super Bowls or one. And then you're going to be the guy moving forward, Brock Purdy, because you're going to be learning from Tom Brady, and you're going to be the heir apparent there. So I can see that kind of being an option, honestly. That's not like a terrible one, really. So that's pretty much it for like that, kind of off-season speculation thing when it comes to those two players. Let's go ahead and get into the divisional playoffs gambling preview here. We're going to start with what the Chiefs and the Jaguars line is at. The Chiefs are favored by 8.5 points right now. So you got Chiefs minus 8.5. I think I'm going to go with the Jags in this spot. I think I'll take the Jags in the points. I feel like that's probably going to be unpopular considering like just the way that whole playoff game went about. They went down so early against the Chargers, who aren't as good of an offensive team as the Chiefs, in my opinion, and should be in most people's opinion. And so that's concerning in its own right. Trevor Lawrence being shaky at the beginning of that game is concerning in its own right. But the Chiefs, as of late, have not been putting away teams as frequently as I thought they would. So they're letting teams kind of hang around right now, which is slightly concerning. I wouldn't put too much weight into it, but I can see a point where obviously 8.5 points is a lot of points. I think the Jags can cover here. So that's just where I'm sitting right now. This could change by the end of the week if this line keeps moving a whole lot or something like that. If I'm just feeling a little bit queasy about it, I might change it up. But right this second, that's what I'm feeling. Next game, Eagles minus 7.5 against the Giants. Man, this one's tough for me because obviously the last time the Eagles and Giants played for real was a couple months ago, or about a month ago, I should say. And the Eagles absolutely smoked them. It was like 48-22, and that score is actually, it looks better than it actually was in real time if you were watching that game. It was an absolute tail whooping by the Eagles. But I will say since then the Giants have gotten significantly more healthy, and I think they've gotten a little bit momentum. They've got a little bit more confidence in themselves as a good football team. Brian Daboll is doing a great job coaching that football team. So right now, and it's another division rival, it'll be the third of this season, kind of like the 49ers Seahawks were. So I can honestly see this Eagles game kind of playing out the same way that the 49ers Seahawks game did, where it's very competitive in the first half, and then maybe the Eagles start pulling away or something like that. But I can also see this game going down to the wire and the Eagles pulling it out. So I think the Eagles win this game, but I will take the Giants to cover the points at 7.5. Next game, we got Bills minus 5 versus the Bengals. This line is really fishy to me. Just right off the bat, I think right now the way each team is playing, and I know that both teams didn't have a great showing. They both kind of underachieved to teams that were obviously worse than them. And they both had a chance to lose each of these games, and the Bills versus the Dolphins and the Bengals versus the Ravens. I just think I'm of the opinion right now that I think the Bengals are playing better football than the Bills right this second. Josh Allen's being a little bit too loosey-goosey. He's making a little bit too many aggressive decisions that I think can come back and bite him and the team in the rear. So this Bengals line, I don't know if this is like something that is kind of under wraps right now with like the injury to Jonah Williams. Like, I don't know what the full report is on him right this second. Like, if he's going to be completely out for this game, they're out their left tackle and the right tackle. Man, that makes that Bengals O-line that much worse, and I just don't know if they can handle that. Obviously, earlier in the season, whenever their O-line was not as gelled as it is right this second, they were not a very good team. They were losing to the Cooper Rush-led Cowboys. They were losing to all kinds of different teams they should have never lost to because Joe Burrow was under incredible duress all game long, and that could rear its ugly head once again in this divisional round of the playoffs, considering the injuries that are happening to the Cincinnati Bengals O-line at this point. So it's a scary line. It's weird. I think the Bengals are the better team right now, but maybe that O-line injury does hurt them to the point where this line makes some sense. So I'm weird about it, but I like the Bengals here still. I'll take the Bengals in the points. Joe Burrow is an assassin. He doesn't care. He'll run around and he'll die on the field if he has to. So he scares the crap out of me. I don't think I can bet against him right in this spot, especially with that many points. All right, last game. 49ers minus 3.5 versus the Cowboys is obviously going to be in San Francisco. Rematch of last year's game that was in Dallas last year, actually. Obviously, the Cowboys lost in that one in dramatic fashion on the Dak slide up the middle with no timeouts left, and the time just ran out on them, which was hilarious and just very Cowboy-esque. And I'm kind of hoping something crazy like that happens again, or the 49ers blow them out. That's just me being a biased Eagles fan. But I will say I do think I need to take the 49ers minus 3.5 here. I know they just smoked the Bucks, but the Bucks were just a team ready to lay down, and they did. The Cowboys I don't think they're that good of a team. It really just comes down to the fact that Dak, even though he had a very good game against the Bucks here, I think he's still been shaky. The 49ers defense is very good. He has the knack for throwing interceptions, pick sixes, and at some point I think he's going to throw one where it really is very untimely, and it's going to really cost him a football game, and I think it happens probably in this game against the 49ers. So I will take the 49ers to win and cover at 3.5 points. Honestly, though, as an Eagles fan, the only reason, I kind of want to play the Cowboys in the NFC Championship game. Obviously, the Eagles got to get to the Giants, and that's a whole other ordeal, obviously. But I kind of want to see the Cowboys in the NFC Championship game. But also, I kind of like the streak of the Cowboys not making it back to an NFC Championship game since 95 or whatever it was, 96, I guess, technically. So, bit of a rock and a hard place. So, I would rather face the Cowboys than the 49ers, and the Cowboys do have a decent chance, I think, of upsetting the 49ers. So, it's going to be a very fun game. I can't wait for this weekend. Obviously, I'm going to be absolutely distraught if my Eagles end up losing to the Giants on Saturday. So that Monday pod is going to be either awesome because I'm going to be excited about the NFC Championship game for the Eagles, or I'm going to be very, very sad that the Eagles lost in that one. We shall see. But that's pretty much it for the podcast this week. I appreciate everybody listening. Thank you once again. Please subscribe to our YouTube. Check us out on YouTube Shorts. I got a lot of cool videos coming out for that. Subscribe and follow our Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, all that good stuff. And once again, I thank my guy Weston for editing this bad boy, getting it out for me. So you're the man, and we will talk to you later. See ya.